Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Chris Pekarski.
And I'm Dave Dale. We've got a good one for you today.
Very interesting episode.
Yeah, well, we interviewed John Janssen of the PPC party, People's Party of Canada.
Who, if I could just say, came in on pretty short notice. It's been, speaking personally, it's been a challenge in the thick of a very competitive and a very active and short election cycle to get people in when they can come in. And John came in 24 hours notice, and you have to give him credit for that. That was awesome.
But yeah, and it was only his second time being interviewed in that way. So it's outside his comfort zone, but he's committed to his campaign and his platform. And I like talking to him. I like him as a guy.
Yeah, it was interesting. I've never.
He schooled me on the gun control stuff. I didn't know enough.
You'll probably see that shortly. I mean, you can tell he has. And I think this is what people want, and I found it interesting that he talked about, and you'll see it in the show in the full context, about standing on belief, standing on policy, standing on things that you truly believe in, right? And we talked about that in relation to vote splitting and strategic voting. You could tell that when he speaks from something, he truly believes and is passionate about that. And I think a lot of the conversation we've had in the last several weeks, that's the case. But you could tell about certain subjects he felt very strongly about.
Immigration, he feels that, they're tinkering with the mistake they made of bringing too many people in. He wants straight up, the PPCs want to put a moratorium on immigration until they figure it out. So pretty cut and dry, very practical. Quit fooling around with it. If we can't handle the ones that we have, don't bring any more yet.
Well, the one thing
that's just his opinion.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to ask was regarding the moratorium concept, and it just never worked its way into the conversation, was well, when then? I mean, is it a slippery slope for just never? Is it a slippery slope for certain areas, certain times? It was tricky because I think why people would probably want a long term or a semi-year plan is so you can have benchmarks, you can have metrics in which you can kind of measure that.
Well, the other part, and I was going to bring it up, but it was just details. But there's people that have been here for 4 or 5 years, going through the legal process to try to be able to be have the residence and then going for their citizenship.
Yeah.
So it's not fair to end that process after they invested 3 or 4 years under a different program and different allocations and numbers of people that were going to be approved, and they're working towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these are people that we want to be here as citizens, and they're filling high-tech jobs, doctors, that kind of thing. So you can't shut the door after they've been here 3 or 4 years.
It also puts a weird, maybe not weird's the right word, but a very, diametrical precedent in terms of having a very, immigrant-friendly policy to being very staunchly, in that opinion, in that policy, against it, right? It's well, what does this mean in terms of will that have any kind of impact on potentially industry? We'd be okay, well, your country isn't, potentially entertaining immigration as a policy. How does that impact workers and industry? And I think that's a different part of the conversation that is, a little more granular.
Yeah, and you got to separate out immigration from refugees.
Which we won't talk about specifically in the episode, but that does come up. So, yeah.
So, yes, he schooled me on the gun control issue and had brought up some really good points there. Immigration, he described the rationale for that and a few other things. Very enjoyable, passionate discussion, and I hope you enjoy it. John Janssen of the PPC party, People's Party of Canada. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we're really glad he got you in, John, on such short notice. So thank you for giving us some of your time. You're a busy man, I've heard, out in Chisholm. So can you tell us and our viewers a little bit about yourself as the person?
Let's see. Pretty basic, really. Father of 2, happily married to my wife, Beth. Live out in Chisholm and small hobby farm. We do... It's all organic. We sell feed as well. Okay, organic feed.
Yeah.
And to pay the mortgage out there, I work in IT. I do corporate IT across Ontario for numerous businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as you were asking earlier, it's a unique
connection
blend
between a hobby farm and then IT.
Exactly.
Right?
It is definitely a unique blend. There's no question about that. it's I guess the yin and the yang. You know, I work
Right.
on IT all day. I sit behind a desk. I work on computers, and then in the evening, it's you get out, and I guess the concept of touch grass. You know,
It's kind of like when a chef comes home after working a 9-hour day. The thing they're going to make is not going to be a full-fledged turkey dinner. It's going to be a PB&J
they're not going to
sandwich.
do a 7-course meal.
Fair point.
So pizza's going in the oven,
There you
and this
go.
is good, or leftovers brought home from work. Yeah, to me, it's almost like therapy. You get home, you get outside, and you deal with the animals, fire up equipment, all that wonderful
What
stuff.
animals do you have?
Right now, just 3 dogs. We just finished moving, so we cut down on a bunch. But in the summer, we do free range. Free range organic turkeys and chickens and that.
Yep.
And that's about it. We try not to overwinter animals. 'Cause that's a bit of a pain.
Yeah.
But
A little more complicated.
yeah, no cow that I'm milking every morning.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, no cow. No.
No cows. Okay. So, Dave, you want to?
Well, I'm interested in knowing where you grew up and how that was.
I grew up in Southern Ontario on a farm. My father worked for Bell Canada. My mom was a nurse and worked full time, so she worked the night shift so that she was there in the morning when we left and there in the evening when we came home from school, and then she slept during the day and did everything. Worked her butt off quite a bit. And then my dad went to Nortel. I went to school in Southern Ontario for IT. Then I worked for about 10 years downtown Toronto commuting. And then I had enough of that and decided to go on a road trip across Canada. So went out to the Yukon for a couple of years. Took 6 weeks to drive out there. When I left the laneway at home, I threw my watch out the window. And after that, it was you drive when you want and you camp when you want. And it was fantastic. It was a nice blend. Once again, the yin and the yang applied out there. I worked in the gold mines on a barge going up and down the Yukon River and also worked in IT, working with the First Nations there and different companies up there.
Okay. And so, what brought you back to Ontario then?
Well, I love my family.
Yep.
Okay. And the Yukon was beautiful. The fishing was just fantastic. It was almost unfair. Okay. The same as the hunting. There wasn't really a lot of work involved.
So you did well.
Oh yes, very well. But I love the bush. I love the north. Living down south. Kudos to those down there that love it. Okay, it was not my cup of tea. North Bay was the perfect blend. Close enough to all my family down south for weddings and funerals, and far enough up north that I could actually buy 100 acres and afford it to farm for fun. And down south, that's not an option.
And how's that match your political life that started this election?
Freedom, I guess, would be one term to use for it. And how that matches, it's I've been very a conservative type person, okay, and PPC closely matches what I believe and what I like to see for Canada, okay. So it was a natural fit. I've been involved in the PPC since its inception. This is the first time, obviously, that I've been running for the PPC, and just kind of figured, you know what, someone's got to step up and do this. And so I came off the farm and came out and did it. I'm not a person that is really into getting out there. I'm a very private person and like my quiet solitude out. So this is a little bit interesting having to go away from what I really desire and instead of work for what I believe in.
Fair. I mean, I think it's interesting. We asked this question for every candidate who's come through our doors into the studio is how do you find whatever you define campaigning as for you, because we know you're a busy person working with your job. Like, are you door knocking? What's the campaign trail look like for you, and how's it going listening to those who are out in the community?
Listening to those around the community is very interesting. It's a very much mixed message. A lot of the from the conservative side of people, they're concerned about this concept of splitting the vote. And I look at there is no splitting of the vote here. The platforms are, well, the CPC doesn't have a platform. It just kind of depends on what the polling is that week, I think. But the platform of the PPC is very definitive. It hasn't changed for quite a few years. And so the concept of splitting the vote, I don't believe there is a splitting of the vote because they're so different. Okay, I look at the the Conservative Party and Liberal Party as kind of the unit party. And it's kind of interesting. I'm talking to people about it, and they're like, no, I'm going to vote for Conservative because I don't want to split the vote. I'm like, well, but they're kind of have the same policy as the Liberals. And they're like, yeah, they do, but they're going to do it slower. Okay, and I'm like, well, I look at you have to vote your values. Okay, whether your values are Liberal or CPC, PPC, or Green, the purpose of a democracy is that we get to have our say in how the country is run. And if you don't do that correctly, if you don't vote your values and you vote for the lesser of two evils, let's say, I think that's wrong. I think you're not being fair to your country, you're not being fair to yourself.
What exactly it is about your platform that's so different from the Conservative platform?
Well, if you look at our platform, one of the big things that is affecting Canada, and it's affecting so many aspects of Canada right now, is mass immigration. Okay, so before you call me a racist and say I'm anti-immigrant and all that, I'm not. Okay, my grandparents, they immigrated to Canada from Holland, and I firmly believe that immigration is good for the country, but it's got to be regulated. Right now, we have this mass immigration that is not healthy for Canada. The immigrants that are, and not even immigrants really, the refugees that are coming in, okay, are not the highest caliber of people. Back in the day, immigration in Canada meant that you were asked, what can you do for Canada? Okay, how are you going to improve Canada? And when you came, that was you were expected. You were expected to help improve Canada, become a Canadian, leave behind your issues in your country because you're a Canadian now. What we see happening down in Southern Ontario and in BC in that is people that are coming from other countries and they're not becoming Canadian. They are bringing all their issues from their countries over to Canada and fighting their home issues on Canadian soil now. That's not the way it's supposed to be. In my mind.
There is a difference between the stream of refugees and the immigration process. Now, I think it's well understood that we brought in too many through the immigration process for students as well as people trying to find citizenship here. Many of the students are going that route to get citizenship. But refugees, a whole different set of people, right? Mm-hmm. The numbers, the last time I looked, the refugee numbers aren't as high as it sounds. Mostly it was us bringing in immigrants to fill in certain, hopefully, areas where we didn't have workers. I don't think they were thinking they're all going to work at Tim Hortons and McDonald's, though. But I think it's been recognized already. Last year, they already started clamping down and changing the numbers that were allowed because they realized they made a mistake because there wasn't enough housing and work, right? So what are you going to do if that's already sort of addressed?
But it's not addressed, okay? They say that, oh, yes, we made a mistake, so we're going to cut down these numbers. The numbers are still extremely high. The Liberals, what they're putting out as their numbers. The Conservatives, their numbers are about half of that. What we're saying is, no, we want a complete moratorium on it until we get sorted out. We have got housing issues in Canada. We've got healthcare issues in Canada. And then we have all these non-Canadians coming up and using up our resources at the moment when we really need them for Canadians. So we're not saying slam the door forever. We're just saying, hold, stop. Let's get things sorted out here. Let's get housing for Canadians. Let's get our healthcare sorted out, okay? And then let's look at it once again, okay? And go back to the old model of bringing in people slower.
I think one of the conversation pieces that is, uniquely and linkly tied to, the topic of immigration is housing, right? Because, a lot of people at the federal level have kind of linked those two topics together, being like, okay, well, immigration has had a certain amount of people let in, and, how are we advancing and making more houses for those here and those who are coming here? How do you view that in terms of the part of the equation?
Well, I think the housing problem is definitely going to be resolved if we cut down on the immigration coming in, okay? Carney just said he's going to build 500,000 homes. Then I can't remember the exact number that he gave, how many billions of dollars, but it came out to $70,000 per home. $70,000 does not build a house. in my estimation anyways, okay, I'm looking at building a home right now, and $70,000 hardly gets me my basement dug and some foundation up. So kind of interested what kind of homes he's looking at there. But
I think they're prefabricated on slab, less than 800 square feet.
sounds like a fantastic place to live in a Canadian winter.
Well, that would be where people who can't get into the housing market, the traditional one, would have a place. So it'd be like a little bit more than a small home, right? Not a great long-term solution, agreed. Definitely not the solution for young couples to build a family. But perhaps with that pressure off, there might be some housing. I don't know exactly how the plan's going to work out. I haven't seen the details on the cost per, but I think it's closer to what we need in the short term, is something that's just better than them living on the street or 10 per house, right? So I guess it's sounds like a emergency plan.
Yeah.
That could have been avoided if they would have followed your platform.
Yeah, exactly. As we've been calling for this year, moratorium on immigration for years. Okay,
Yeah.
This is not a new thing that we just came up with at PPC. No, now we're against. We want a moratorium. We've been calling that for years.
What started the PPC party and when? Well, why are you guys a party that it seemed like it was an offshoot of the Conservatives because they weren't conservative enough?
It started from back then, yes, and it snowballed since then. Started I think 6 years.
I think it was 2019.
What's that? Yeah.
I think it was 2019.
And, it was people disillusioned with all of the political parties that are out there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Everyone thinks that it's all conservatives in ours. I think 40 to 45% of our membership is ex-Liberals and Greens. Okay. Another large port, another 40, I believe, is young people that have never voted before, and they've never voted for any of the other parties before. They are born and bred PPC. And a very small portion of it is actually conservatives. Okay?
Oh, no kidding. See, I was just at Gary Keller's place last night. They had an open house, and everything I overheard was about the vote splitting. They are definitely worried about it. Definitely think that it's going to make a difference for them. Just like the Liberals are concerned about the NDP, right? It's the same sort of dynamic.
Historically speaking.
Yeah. And you're both sort of looking at very similar demographics. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
I will say that. Yes, it is very interesting. See, I don't really believe that the Conservatives are a conservative party anymore. Okay,
Right.
They have shifted so far over to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and trying to take over that centrist that they've left a lot of people and with common sense conservative ideals behind, and that is hurting them at the polls without a doubt. Yes, but I would look at it that if they want to fix that, then they need to fix their platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
They're leaving people. People aren't leaving them.
Mm-hmm. So this might be a lesson for them.
I don't think they'll learn.
Yeah.
They seem pretty hardcore that, no, we are going to go down this globalism, WF, everything rabbit trail, and we're going to stay there, and we're just going to do it a little bit slower than liberals are.
What else is on your platform other than the immigration that makes it stand out?
Well, pet one of mine is the firearms, okay? As a fairly avid hunter and sport shooter in that, and right now, the government is hardcore going after us. Licensed, the firearms community is one of the most vetted communities. Okay, the RCMP every day, my name goes through a computer to see if I'm still allowed to own a firearm. Okay, on a daily basis. So the fact that, and then also we are apparently being blamed for all this gun crime that's happening. And so their solution to this is let's take away the hunters' guns, okay, because they're shooting up Toronto. Instead of going, hey, where are these guns actually coming from? There's definitely a proportion of those guns that are stolen from legal gun owners, okay, but most of them are coming from the States. And the funny part is even the Police Chief Association is saying this is crazy. The guns aren't coming from these people. These people are not the problem. Leave them alone. And the government still ignores that and is still hardcore coming after us and buying back something that I never bought off them. So from a personal property view of this, it infuriates me that I bought something legally. I had to jump through massive hoops to do it. I paid taxes on it. The government said I could have it. And now all of a sudden they say I can't have it, and they're going to come to my house and take it away. My guns haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. And guns are an inanimate object. It's the person behind it that's the problem. So let's deal with the person behind it. And let's deal where these illegal guns are coming from. And if you look at the courts and you look at how guns are dealt with, it's one of the first charges that's dropped. So if you're so concerned about guns, stop dropping the charges against these gangbangers for gun possession. So that definitely is a pet peeve of mine, without a doubt. It's probably a bit beyond a pet peeve. But
I don't mean to troll you here, but don't you think there should be some restrictions on guns that can be used for mass killings instead of sportsmanship and hunting?
Well, can you define what kind of gun is used for mass killing versus sport shooting hunting?
Well, the so-called, I forgot the term they're using for it now, but...
assault weapon?
Well, I know for hunting you don't need a large magazine and semi-automatic. You don't really need that if you're just hunting.
Okay.
Why would you need that?
Why would you need a semi-automatic?
Yeah, well, it's
why do you want
a not with a massive amount of ammunition to shoot. Like some of the guns can be converted to shoot, right? So shouldn't there be any restrictions? That's the fair.
I think there
question.
should be restrictions on the people that can own them. Yes. Okay. But
you don't think there should be restriction on the
on
type
mag
of weapon?
length? Like you're talking about magazine length, and let's say the AR-15. Okay?
Yeah, that's the one.
You know that terrible black
The ones
gun.
that people use for these type of things sometimes.
So when it comes right down to it, if you're hunting guns are actually probably some of the most dangerous guns. The AR-15 which is the one that they love to demonize. Okay, by the way, I own one though, for full disclosure, and I happen to love it. Is a very ergonomic, very nice shooting gun, and it's not just used for hunting. Okay, the AR actually, as far as hunting, it's good for small game. It's just a 22. Okay, the AR is just a 22. It's not this long distance, heavy hitting gun at all. And as far as having a large magazine, yeah, there are rules in Canada as to how large your magazine can be for hunting. You're only allowed X number. Okay, but when I'm at the range sport shooting, okay, why can't I have a 30-round magazine? I'm sport shooting. I'm not causing any harm. I'm sitting out and plinking at a legal range, and there should be no issue.
Are you okay with restrictions on how you store it and how it's in your house and those types of things?
Yep. Yeah, I do believe in gun safety. There's no question. Okay, they got to be kept away from children. And at the same time, children also have to be trained if they're around them. Okay. My children are very gun safe friendly. They know about guns. They know not to touch them. And if they're going to touch them, ask Dad, and we'll go out and do some shooting, no question. So yes, there's also people that should not own guns. Okay, I don't question that. Okay, if you
so restrictions for ownership and storage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. To me, that's common sense. Okay. But
should
if I'm vetted,
should they be registered? And should the cops know how many guns you have?
No, they shouldn't.
No.
They know I have guns. That should be enough. Okay. And even then, so they know that a law-abiding citizen has firearms. Okay. But the guy that's going to use those firearms for bad things, does he register them? So, like gun-free zones.
Yeah.
Who does that apply to?
Yeah.
It applies to the law-abiding citizen who's going to, who's not going to carry in that situation. But it doesn't apply to the criminal because we already have laws against killing people. So that should solve it, shouldn't it?
I don't know. If
they're not going to follow the laws on killing people, are they going to follow the laws on guns?
Well, this is what worries people. They look down at the States where people are carrying weapons. They're using them in road rage incidents. Like they're that's the thing you reach for when you lose your shit, right? And that's what seems to happen. So I think that's what Canadians are worried about is eventually, if you don't restrict them, you end up with open carry and guns everywhere. Doesn't seem like the world I want to live with everybody holding a gun. Because I know there's lots of guys with tempers out there that shouldn't have a gun in their hand, even though they passed whatever test that they took to buy it. But 20 years later, they're in a situation where I don't want to bump into them on the road with road rage if they were carrying a gun. So that's what I worry about, their lifestyle coming here.
I think this is an interesting conversation piece because I think everyone has a very unique opinion on this, maybe a different informative background on it. You know, in the conversations you're having with the constituents in the riding, has this come up much? Is it dependent on the area? Are they talking about certain guns like we have today? Like, is this a big topic that you're seeing on the campaign trail, or is there something else that they're talking to you about directly?
In the gun culture, those of us that like our firearms, yes, it is very huge because
it's a sticking point. I know some people that are gun users and collectors, and they're very upset with this situation.
Yeah, they're through just property rights. They have unilaterally said that I think we're at 2,300 banned guns right now. Okay, something along that line. That they just unilaterally banned through OIC. Okay, so it didn't go through any steps. It's just Trudeau said those are bad guns. We need to take them away. And like there's a 22 kids plinking rifle on the list.
Yeah, they really shot themselves in the foot on that.
Yeah, like
that was terrible. Dave.
I know.
That was terrible fun.
Yeah.
The process they've gone about things has been very flawed for sure.
Oh,
for
totally
sure.
yes.
Yeah, they look like they're dumb as I am about when it comes to the specifics about guns.
Oh, and on the first list, was a missile system. The Canadian missile system was banned as well. Man, I never even knew I could buy one of those.
Well, good to know, eh?
It was kind of like, wow, they put a lot of thought and in-depth thought into this.
So if I can just redirect us just a little bit, because I want to get back to the
and we're
election.
going to be wrapping up in a bit.
Yeah, shortly. We talked a lot about with our other candidates who come on the show, leadership. And a lot of them, that's the biggest sticking point. When we talk to the campaign trail, which is kind of why I was asking about like what you're seeing out there, is that for them, the biggest sticking point is who do they want to be the leader of Canada, right? Who do they want to be talking to them at the international stage, at the federal stage? Maxime Bernier, if I pronounce that correctly, is the leader of the PPC.
Correct.
And I've seen him more active in previous elections dating back to 2019. What's the conversations happening on that level in terms of the campaign trail or the entire party side of PPC with Maxime Bernier?
Well, we're not impressed with the other leaders. Okay, we do believe that Max is the best shot for it. Okay, and we're proud to have Max leading Canada. He is a man of principles. And he stood by his principles. He could have flipped over much easier. Everyone points out that I think he's a grifter of sort. He's making less money for the PPC, working for the PPC than he could working in industry. He's a lawyer. He's got so much experience. He's actually got business experience in the background. Okay. So, yeah, I think he's a very well-rounded person to lead Canada.
What are the drawbacks for him? Because when I talk to people about him, they kind of dismiss him as a little bit out there, just because of some of the strong statements were made when he was really talking about immigration. And is there anything that you think that has changed in him that is a little bit more palatable to people generally?
No, Max has not changed, okay? We stick with the same platform we've had for years, okay? I think what has happened, though, is that when mainstream media does talk about him, okay, it's a demonizing, okay? There's absolutely no way he's given a fair shake, okay? Through the leaders' debate, like the debates, for instance, okay? Every year they change the goalposts. So last year he was, we needed to get, I believe it was 4%. In the previous election, and then the leaders in that. This year, and Max got 4%, over 4% last year. Okay, well, we need to fix this. So now we're going to do it by, he's got to have 38 days before the election, or 28 days before the election, he's got to be 4% in the polls across Canada. Okay, and then he could be in the debates. Okay, and it's kind of interesting because, and I find it, I look at it that they're obviously quite scared of him. okay, because they will not get out and debate him. Okay, they won't allow him to debates, even though we have over double the votes of the across Canada of the Green Party.
Sorry, when you say they, you're referring to the other political leaders?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. They don't want him in the debates. They don't want to have to debate him because he's got the answers that they're lacking, and we have over twice the amount. You fact check that in the last one. Okay, of the Green Party, and the Green Party is well, actually they're not in the debates. And kudos to the gentleman from the Green Party. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Saying that
I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly, but Pedno, I believe. I'm not a strong French speaker, so pardon that for what I can be. But I think it's Jonathan Pedno, I think. But correct me if I'm wrong.
He came up and said, Max should be in the debates, and if he's not going to be in the debates, maybe we shouldn't be in the debates, or something along that line. But he actually stood up for the fact that Max should be in the debates, and you got to give credit.
And
where credit's
they
due.
promptly eliminated him.
So then they said, okay, you're bad. You're not in the debates now either. You can't say nice things about Max. So because the rules they put in, they didn't. But we run pretty much a full slate across the country. Okay, we have a very large popular support. Yes, it has not given us a seat yet because it is spread across the country evenly and not in, let's say, one island. Okay.
For the local Cogeco debate, were you given an opportunity?
I was given the opportunity to submit a video, okay, but not an opportunity to join the debate.
Because there was an empty Diaz there because of the Green Party person couldn't make it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it would have been great if you were there. I think.
I would have.
I think you should have been there.
So my question is, are you able to provide a reason or rationale that they provide you that you were not invited to the debate? And that you're willing to share, at least?
I never spoke with them. From what I understand, they were looking at it. They were just going to follow the Canadian election rules, or not election, the debate commission, sorry.
Okay.
And they were just going to follow that. And there we go. So no PPC.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up with one last statement from yourself there. What would you like to tell the voters as we head into the April 28th election?
Well, I'd like to ask you to go out to and check out our platform and look at it with an open mind. And when you see that, compare it against the other platforms and then make a decision. Vote your values. Don't vote out of fear. Don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Look at what we're offering and say, yes, that's what I want for Canada. And then go to the polls and do that.
Well, that's excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, John, for joining us. I mean, as you said to every candidate, it takes a lot to kind of go out there and put yourself forward and put yourself out there. So thank you for joining us on the show today.
Well,
we really do appreciate you coming on.
It's very much a pleasure.
And remind me not to come to a gun debate with you. So with so little ammo, the next time I'm going to study up a little bit and know what I'm talking about. But I think I got my point across. But you got your points across really well, and I appreciate the being informed by you. I learn from talking to people that know things I don't. So
what you should do is come out.
Does.
You should come out to the range with me sometime, okay, and see that these very scary guns that media portrays are not.
Well, it's the people behind the guns that scare me. But exactly. I understand that we have an issue here in Canada and trying to figure out that particular thing. And I'd like to see it cleared up because I have a lot of friends that have guns, and they want to feel like they're legal and not part of the problem because they're not. Right. So your point was well made there. We'd like to hear your comments, and please share, link. Have a good day and vote. Make sure you vote.